Hello, everybody. Everyone already got quiet, so I don't even have to wrangle anybody. I guess we can get started. I don't know if there's anyone that's supposed to tell us we should start. But I think we'll just kick it off. So thank you for coming to our work session today, Strategies for Food Recovery in Mountain Towns. My name is Dominique Giroux. I'm the Sustainability Manager for Breckridge and Keystone with Vail Resorts.
Hi, I'm Diane Calvin. I'm the founding director of Cafe Food Rescue in Summit County, Colorado.
Awesome. So we're going to start with a question. Who here is a current food donation partner, meaning you donate food to organizations around you? Is that one hand? Awesome. And who here wants to become a food donation recovery partner? Good. I think you might be already one. Awesome. So we're going to obviously go through strategies behind this, but we wanted to kick it off with understanding a little bit of the challenge here. And I'm sure a lot of us have seen, similar hierarchy here before, talking about, preventing wasting food, donating food, and then going to compost and landfill when necessary. I like this one from the EPA. You'll notice I skipped over the feed animals. Unless you have animals that you would like to feed, please don't feed the bears. Don't come away from that, this with feeding the bears. So I'm going to focus on a little bit of these points here. So preventing wasted food. Super important, as we all know, to prevent those environmental impacts from the front. Easier said than done, especially in an event center or, a ski industry. We don't always know, how much food we need to provide each day. We have a good sense, but there's always going to be some sort of wasted food there. But to the best, of our ability, using technologies to help us prevent wasted food in the beginning is the first place to start. And then really getting into donation. And I think it can be really easy to skip over donation and go straight to compost, right? There's, certain logistics behind it that Diane will kind of get into and share that can make it a little more challenging, again, especially at a ski resort or something where things are very dynamic and there's a lot of teams involved. But it's important that we do the best that we can to capture that food waste and get it into the hands of people. And then again, moving into compost after donation, we're fortunate here in Summit County to have great partners over at the Summit County Resource Allocation Park, where they take all of our food waste, compost it locally, and it gets turned into soil right here that we actually use on our mountains sometimes too. So coming full circle, which is awesome. And then what's not in this chart, but I added here as a bottom bullet, is assess and make change. I think we can go through this hierarchy and kind of keep doing business as usual, but if we don't take a step back and really see the changes we can make in terms of food waste, then we're not kind of doing our job. Looking at how much you're throwing into the compost and what that kind of equates to in terms of how much you're ordering, looking at new ordering technologies, things like that. So those are some of the things that we're thinking about here. And I really like this quote at the bottom, and it's a lot about what we're going to talk about today. Some surplus food is inevitable, and the goal of food waste reduction efforts is not only to get food out of landfills, but to make sure food is going to its highest and best use, and that is being eaten by people, right? We want to help feed our communities. We want to try to capture this food. And again, yes, there are logistics behind it, but Diane will share more about that. So I think looking at also the environmental impacts of food waste, I think this room is probably pretty familiar with this. That said, though, sometimes I don't think that we talk about this enough. When I was kind of doing some research and pulling some stats, these are from ReFed here, I was a little bit surprised actually about how high these numbers are. Yes, food waste is not the biggest contributor to climate change. I think we all know that. But it is an aspect of it, and it is important for us to pay attention to and reduce. So these are stats for the US. So in one year, food waste accounts for 14% of total annual methane emissions. And that is not an insignificant number, right? That is something that we can all take action on through, food donation or composting. And then for us, fresh water, super important that we try and reduce that. That comes more from agricultural inputs, but still, the more that we can be better at buying, change the, supply chain, and hopefully reduce that as well. And then I think we all know on a local level, especially in mountain towns, very important to keep food out of the landfill. I was actually surprised here to see 24% of landfill inputs for US. I actually thought that number would be higher. But here locally, at least in Summit County, it's super, super important to keep what we can out of landfill because we have restrictions for space, like I think many of us do. Meaning if our landfill fills, that's it. Then we're sending waste out of the county. It's going to be expensive for people. It's a huge burden. So right, not only from the environmental side, but from community financial side as well. And I'm sure a lot of you feel that too, right? I'm not sure about everyone else's footprint, but I imagine there's very few places to expand landfills, and we don't want to see that happen. And then reducing local methane emissions, right? Keeping that food out of the landfill also supports that here locally too. So I think that's it for me right now. I'll pass it to Diane to talk about food insecurity and get into some of the details.
Hi. Okay. I expect that most people in the room are sustainability professionals. My background is in solid waste management and energy efficiency, so it took me a long time to understand food insecurity in my community. And I want to give you some tools for understanding why food insecurity is a problem in our mountain communities, especially when you wouldn't necessarily expect it to be, looking around you. Food insecurity occurs when a household cannot access enough food due to the lack of money or other essential resources. And there are a lot of words and links on these slides, but we have at the end a QR code where you can scan it and get to a list of resources. So, don't worry about having to take pictures and write things down because at that, you can get that QR code at the end and then it's already up on our website. So one tool for understanding why food insecurity is so prevalent in our mountain towns is an understanding of family basic needs budgets. One really good resource is the self-sufficiency standard from the Center for Women's Welfare in the University of Washington. If you look at the chart on the right first, this is all the things that a family or individual needs in order to meet their basic needs. Nothing extra. You have to pay housing and childcare and transportation in order to be able to continue to work and have a place to live. And once you pay those, there's often not enough money left for food. If you look at the left, that's the official poverty measure. It is based on what the FDA says groceries cost and then multiplied by 3 to get to a family budget. This has been used since the 60s, and if you look at this data for Summit County, it only covers 22% of the basic needs for somebody in Summit County. All right. Here's an example of some information you can find in the self-sufficiency standard data for your community. This is Summit County because that's what I'm used to. The self-sufficiency standard has information for basic needs for hundreds of different family types based on how many adults and children are in the family, whether they're babies or in preschool or in school, and how many of them are working. And this is for 2022 for Summit County, the most recent data that we have from the self-sufficiency standard. But if you look for the self-sufficiency standard for Montana, Wyoming, Utah, and California, that was updated in 2024. Unfortunately, for Idaho, it's 2023. West Virginia, I think somebody is in here from West Virginia. They did sign up that they were coming. That data is only to 2005, but there's some other data that I can show you. This is the Public Tableau. It's a website that lets organizations make visual representations of data sets. And I just picked this for Colorado. I picked 4 areas that have ski resorts in them. The red one is Jefferson County, which contains most of Denver, just for, reference. And what I noted from this is how rapidly the cost of living went up in Eagle County between 2018 and 2022. And everybody hears anecdotal information about this, but this helps people understand what people are facing. Another place that you can find living wage information is that information on the right, the MIT Living Wage Calculator. It has a very similar methodology, and it's up to date to 2025. And what I saw here is that Summit and Route took off in the cost of living and ended up higher than Eagle County. And now I have to call out the elephant in the room. I've never been to Wyoming or Montana, and I got confused in the middle of making this slide. So if you change that Montana to Wyoming and you put $3.51 in the average meal cost for the state, then you can listen to me now. One last place to look for understanding of food insecurity in your community is the Feeding America map, the meal gap. And in that if you go to that link, you can go to that page and you can roll your cursor across the states and across the counties, and this little box pops up. So you can quickly take a look at what food insecurity rates are and what average meal costs are, and how people are facing this threshold between making too much to get federal support and meeting that boundary. So it's a really interesting way to get a look at food insecurity. All right. So when I was dreaming about starting a food rescue in Summit County, I based my research on food rescues in major urban centers because that's where it was going on. And when I got here, I found that there are a lot of things that are different. There are geographic and infrastructure challenges that you face, like long travel distances, limited cold storage and transport, and weather problems. There are also challenges based on seasonality and tourism, including fluctuating food availability and demand, and seasonal staff and volunteer turnover. And there are community and capacity constraints that are like related to smaller food donors and smaller food access organizations. All right. We get into a little bit of what Cafe Food Rescue does. We started in 2021, and we work with licensed food businesses, which are those guys on the left, and distribute in partnership with 4 food pantries, 4 community dinners, and other nonprofits like a local shelter for people experiencing domestic abuse, organizations that are giving English lessons. When they have families there, we bring all the snacks. And we're also able to get more food into the community because we are licensed retail and wholesale to package food to get it out to the pantries. Here's some examples of grocery store rescue. On the left, that's less than half the eggs we picked up at Walmart that day. That week, we picked up 1,000 dozen eggs. An ordering problem. But if you get there and people know you and they call, once you get established, they'll call you and you can respond. It was before egg prices went really crazy. But we do still get a lot of eggs. That's from Walmart. And then other grocery rescue, it's mostly produce and baked goods, but sometimes you can get frozen meat, dairy, and prepared foods. This is restaurant cleanouts. Here we have 2 mud seasons, and restaurants will close for a week or 2, and you get all of their fresh food and get it out into the community. And on the right is when Peak 8 closed in 2024. That's the food we got from them. And then event center donations. A lot of the food, we take hotel pans of food and get it straight to community dinners, and some of it we package and get out through food pantries. I forgot to mention that we have 3 of our own food pantries, 1 in the Care Clinic and 1 at each Colorado Mountain College campus. It reminded me that's the refrigerator from one of them. And here's our impact report. Again, you don't have to pay too much attention to the detail, But it took a little while for us to get established. Then we really got rolling. We are already at over 140,000 pounds of food recovery this year. And the value of the meals you see there is based on 1.2 pounds per meal and $4.74 per meal as reported by Feeding America. And the climate impacts that you see here are done with the ReFed impact calculator. Is somebody here from ReFed? Cool. So I'm going to go through this quickly, but let me know if you want to add anything on that. So in step one, so it's a really powerful tool that has a lot of different options. And in step one, you can pick the type of food, wasted food or surplus food or food waste that you are looking at. For our example, I picked food service because that's what we do with Vail. And then in step two, you can pick the type of food. You can pick a specific type of food or a standard mix. I picked standard mix. And then you can go in and pick your current scenario, which like what you want to compare with. So I picked that it all went into the landfill. And then for the alternative, that 95% of it got to people and 5% of it was composted. And then you end up with all of these results that can include total life cycle emissions footprint, life cycle methane footprint, water footprint, meals recovered. And then you can also download it into an Excel file if you have a lot of different things that you want to combine and compare. And there's just a little bit more of like the results that you can get after you put that out. And that was all for that. Did you guys from ReFed want to add anything to the calculator? No? Oh, yeah. No, I use it. It's based on the EPA WARM model, like the base of it, the waste reduction, WA, I don't know what it was, WARM. But then they like made it a lot more accessible and a lot more detailed. Yeah. Okay. Again, there are a lot of words on all these slides, and I want to move through it quickly because I'm excited to get to questions and discussion with you guys. So like what the main things we're going to be looking at are donor coordination, logistics, and volunteer and partner engagement. Food donor needs, it's really important for your food donor that you're timely, and there are 3 parts to this. The first one is understanding when you're going to be in the way, or when the staff is too busy to interact with you. For retailers, it's going to be, they give you a period of the day that they would like you to be there, and you schedule your volunteers then. But for events, especially multi-day events, you might find that even though you know that they're setting aside the food for you, it's best to stay away until the end because they don't have time to talk to you. Secondly, being there when you say you're going to be there, especially if somebody has to meet you. And thirdly is being ready to pick up the phone if there's a not regularly scheduled donation. Because sometimes, like for example, Walmart will call and they'll say, we have, 30 cases of milk and the new milk is coming and you have to get this out of the way. So that's the timeliness. Security, you have access to the back of the grocery store and the back of the event center, and it's important to recognize that. Being respectful is being respectful of the donor's time. Community connections. It's important to share with the staff, the receiving clerks, where this food is going. And so many times I found out that that staff relied on food access resources, or they still do. So it's, it helps them to understand where it's all going because you are taking up their time and their space. For tax deduction, there is a really good fact sheet from the Harvard Food Law and Policy Clinic, which is in the links. And then for liability protection, I waited till the end so I could put this up. There's been federal liability protection in place since 1997 for food donors and intermediaries, and actually it was strengthened in 2023. And so the legal fact sheet from this is also in the resources. When we do packaging, we have a certified food safety protection manager at all packaging events, and all of our volunteers have food handler certification. We have, like, on state food safety, I just buy packs of food handler certifications and send them to people who are interested. They go online, take a 2-hour class, and then all we have to do is remind them when they're with us. And we have retail and wholesale packaging licensing both at the Keystone Conference Center and at our hub. And for foods distribution partner needs, timing is really important. We get food, every day of the week, but you want to get it to the one that's open and can get it to them that day. Get it to people in need that day. Every one of our food access partners has storage limitations. And then, my phone is ringing. All right, let's ignore that. So the other thing is, like, there are different parts of our different food distribution partners that serve more families that are looking for ingredients. They have a way to cook. There are other food distribution partners that serve more people that are living in tents and in their cars, and we need to make sure we get them things that are ready to eat, maybe don't even need to be heated. And this also affects, like, what we pack from the events. One of our food distribution partners says we need more chicken, and so when we get grilled chicken breasts from Keystone Conference Center, we package those, and then we'll, like, figure out, like, which of the hotel pans of food we want to get to the community dinners. So storage is really key, and us having our own hub, which is in the old Pizza Hut in Silverthorne, meant that we could recover more fresh food. Before we got our own hub licensed, if somebody called me and had fresh food, I need to find out where it was going before I could say yes. But now I can just say yes. I can also, like, even out distribution, like, don't flood somebody with something. I can take everything. Let's see. That's good. And volunteer management, we use Sign Up Genius to schedule our volunteers, but there are a number of scheduling and route management tools out there that were written specifically for food rescue. They also include ways for you to track your data, but we use our own CRM, our customer relations management tool that we built, because we had this special event relationship with Keystone Conference Center, and these tools didn't do what we needed it to do. Let's see. For the food rescue, where a volunteer of ours goes to a grocery store or to Starbucks and then takes it to one of our food access partners, we have built into our CRM a form that they can scan a code when they get to the recipient and fill out all the information. They fill out their name, where it came from. If they're at one of our recipients, it pre-fills the recipient, but if they're at our hub, sometimes things stop at our hub and then we figure out where they're going. Then we have to fill that out. We have to, like, fix that later. But they can put in the food type. We have, like, 7 different food types, and then they can put in the weight of that type, and they have 5 different of those, but they can submit it multiple times. And then they can put in images if they want to. If they saw a problem, they can let us know, and then they put out how long the food run took. And that all goes into our CRM, and we have a dashboard, and this is like where all the food came from that we can, like, check on. And then this is where it all went. And I think is this like, this might be a really good time to take some questions. What do you think? Yeah, we had access to the Keystone Conference Center kitchen. We started working with them in early 2022, and they had closed their bake shop during COVID. It's huge, right? They closed their bake shop during COVID, and then they let us have like a whole long table and the space under it. Oh yeah, this is it. So that's the bake shop, and where the lady on the right is working, that's our table. And we keep having, like, when they reopened the bake shop, I was like, oh no, you're going to kick us out, and they're like, no, this is your table. So, and they even let us, before we opened our place, to bring in outside donations and package there. So we developed all of our procedures and all of what we do at the Keystone Conference Center. So, you know, we developed everything in coordination with the Keystone Conference Center. I actually have a thumb drive of all the recipes for Vail resorts. Then I have to, like, I get the BEO. I don't know if you call it a BEO there. Okay. And I look and I go to my recipes and I build a label. But then I always go to the chef and I always use my eyes, because sometimes they change something and I'm like, wait, this doesn't look right. But even then, I always go to the chef and I'm like, is this what you did? We are required by the state to have a label that has ingredients. We are required that has a weight, a production day, use by date. It doesn't have to be like I'll fill 30 containers and weigh 2 of them and put that weight on, right? Just, it doesn't have to be exact for every container. You'll find that things repeat a lot. And if you develop a relationship with the chefs, like he just texted me today. I said, will you please leave the BEOs? I can't get there till Friday. And I can just text him a lot of the time. So that doesn't often take a lot of time, but sometimes when I'm there, there's a long hallway between the bake shop and the main kitchen, and I'm spending a lot of time walking down. We have in our customer relations management tool a product database where we like have all the ingredients for the mayonnaise and the soy sauce and so I can build the label pretty quickly after I get all those in there. I am, yeah, like we have had high school students before, but I'd love to work with you guys more. It's a struggle because like there's just so much to do that like falls off. And then you end up spending hours doing it yourself, and then you don't have time to get the volunteers. We also have seasonality. Like we have our summer volunteers and our winter volunteers, and in mud season there's nobody. It takes work, and we're training somebody up to help with that right now. You got a question?
First, you guys are doing amazing.
Yeah, when you get a piece of food, somebody had to clear some land, plant that food, water that food. There's water that I don't know if Refed builds the water into the transport, but if you take that food and somebody cleared the land, they planted it, they processed it, they washed it, they put it in a bag. It's the amount of water that it took to get that to us. And if we then take that and compost it or throw it in the landfill, that water is the water loss. Yeah, it's a lot. Like when I get something from Keystone Conference Center, I walk in and I'm like, okay, what day is it? When are the community dinners? When are the food pantries? What can I package? And so it's a lot of understanding your community, understanding the needs. Like we even talked about, like different food access providers have different clients. It's a lot of logistics, and it's a lot like you can't just step in, because like a lot of them are smaller also. There's one really big food pantry, but a lot of these are smaller, and so you have to take all the pieces to make sure you get that food out quickly. Yeah. We get about a third of our funding from local governments. We don't have any state or federal funding. About a third of it is foundations, mostly local, definitely Colorado, and then a third is individuals. Do you want me to?
Oh, we were very close to it. Good. Cool. So I'll talk a little bit more about partnerships and kind of like the ski industry side of things for us, or just from like a donor perspective. So like Diane mentioned, the Keystone Conference Center was our first location under Vail Resorts in Summit County that we started working with them, working with Cafe Food Rescue, and it really came from Diana, actually pictured on the right here, who really started to like notice through, like our composting efforts and, just general food waste in general, that there was opportunity there, especially being an event center. It definitely provides, and feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but I think a lot of good like quality food for Cafe Food Rescue, because it's a lot of like what you see, like sheet pans, things ready to go. Diana's just saying like she's going to pick up sandwiches there, or you did on Monday. So it's definitely a really good environment, and it's, like a closed system. It's not like our ski resort where we have, a lot going on. The conference center is like a standalone building. So it makes it easier to kind of capture that, extra food. And what we've seen from partnering with Cafe Food Rescue is exactly what I was talking about in the beginning: improved ordering practices. The chef, I reached out to him before this because he's really the one that does this, not me, but Chef Bruno. He's been able to see more of what is, going to donation versus like just going to compost. You don't really get that good visual look. So they've been able to adjust a little bit too. And as mentioned, right, like they're always going to have some extra food because we don't want people to run out of food. They're not happy with that. So we're always going to have a surplus. So it's really, really awesome that we're able to provide that to Cafe Food Rescue. And then when we can't, we do have compost too, of course. And then, since that partnership and providing that packaging location for Cafe Food Rescue to kind of, get them going, get them off the ground until they got their new facility, we've been able to do year-round donations, which is really awesome because the food need, it doesn't stop. It's not just like a certain time of year. So it's been really awesome there. And taking learnings from there, last season was the first season we tried to expand into the actual resort operation side. So Breck Mountain Dining, so it includes base area restaurants and also on-mountain restaurants at Breckridge. Participated in this, and we were able to donate a variety of items, including some dry goods, frozen items, fresh things. But we did it only at the end of the season. And I say that because it is very challenging in season to donate food. That is a goal of mine this year, at least maybe one outlet, if I can find someone that's super passionate about it. Because we do want to keep trying to provide as much as we can and get it into the hands of people versus, right, compost. Yes, we can do that. So we did 6,200 pounds just at the end of this last season here around April, May. But maybe we'll look for like some peak periods this year where maybe we can capture some stuff. And again, I think it's going to take us really identifying a champion at the outlet that is willing to really like drive this and support it, because without that, there's just, people who's in the ski industry here, I don't know. Okay, you know how crazy it can get, right? And at the end of the day, sometimes people want to be done. So can we find someone that's really passionate about this, passionate about our sustainability programs, and get them bought in to do that. So ask me next year how it went. We'll see. And if anyone has done this, let me know. But yeah, I think there's also a couple other challenges. So for Diane, right, she was talking about storage is key. And for us being a donor in this capacity, especially at the end of the season, like that 6,200 pounds, it's like all around the same time. So then, Diane needs a place to store it, find people that need it. So that's why, for us, it would be important to try and even that out a little bit more and figure out how we can be a more consistent donor throughout the year and not just provide, kind of an overload. But we're very happy that we were able to, and I'm very grateful to the Breck Mountain Dining team who really spearheaded this and got it going. And I think that's it for this one. What else do we have? So finding partners. You want to talk a little bit about this?
Do you want me to turn this on? Is it there? Yeah. Okay, so if you're looking for partners, the Food Rescue Alliance is nationwide. Actually, there are a few overseas. But what you could do is go to that website and see if there's anybody doing food rescue in your area from that. But there is some food rescue going on anywhere where there's a food pantry that's either a nonprofit or faith-based. So to find local food pantries, you could go to the Feeding America website or your local like food bank website, or you could just type find food near me into Google and it'll find it for you. What's interesting to me is like we were reached out to by a faith-based organization in Idaho Springs. And they have seen a reduction in the amount of food they're getting through the Food Bank of the Rockies and an increase in demand. And they wanted to know how to work with their local casino. So there are small food pantries out there that are looking to work with you. I think that was it on that.
Okay, I thought I had the clicker. I was like, there it is.
Oh, here we go. Was that you or me?
I think you.
It's me?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Let's see. So engage and build your local network, identify potential partners, engage local champions and volunteers. Actually, one of our greatest champions was our Department of Environmental Health. And they spent hours working with me on how to make this work. And, don't be afraid of what they're going to say. You need them. And once you go and sit down with them, they're going to be your greatest champion. Develop smart systems. You need to get out there and understand what the donors and the recipients need and use tracking tools. That's the local health officials comes in there too. And then pilot programs and scale up. Like I said for years that I was going to do this and people said, you can't do it. They said, you don't know all the food safety rules. I can learn that. Like you'll never get Vail Resorts.
Got him.
Yeah, and then share your success stories, and then people will hear about you, and then they'll call you when something happens and they have a lot of excess food.
Yeah.
That's the QR code.
And we'll also have it. We have
we have
group
it at the
discussion
end,
questions, but
yeah.
also we can leave this up here for a second.
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. And sorry, I'm like choking on my tea. Thank you so much to Diane and Cafe Food Rescue for our partnership together. I think it's super, super awesome what they do and so important. Especially in mountain communities. I don't think sometimes, like Diane said, it's very visible, but the need is there. So if we can all just do a little piece, and again, I think a big theme from this conference has been doing something is better than nothing. So if we can take that away and donate what you can, food, a few 100 pounds, I don't know if that's too small. But right, we can all make an impact. So I think it's important. We want to lead a group discussion now and get some questions, but yeah, thank you all very much for being here. So we can start with more questions if people have questions. Otherwise, I put thought starters on here. But yeah, I would love to try and keep collaboration going around, challenges that you see maybe in your own community around whether it's food insecurity or, just donating in general, or successes that you've had. If you're a ski resort, have you explored this? What's worked well? So I'd love to hear from people.
In Summit County, there are 2 community dinners on Tuesday nights. One is here in Breck at St. John's Church, and the other one is in Silverthorne at the Elks Lodge. It's run by the Rotary Dinner. The Rotary Dinner serves 200 people every week, and St. John's fluctuates. In the summer, it's like 100, and because they also serve the NRO kids. In the winter, it's more like 50. Oh, and then, and then on Sunday, there's Father Dyer Church here in Breckridge has a community dinner. The 4th one that I mentioned is actually a lunch that's twice a week at Lord of the Mountain Church in Dillon. They have day services where people living in tents and in their cars can come in, have a hot meal, have a shower, do their laundry, charge their phones. I picked up from A-Basin last month.
She told me that right before. I was like, oh, good. Here you go.
It's key to get, unless you have a lot of space in your freezer, it's key to let us know before you have the event that it's coming. And it just depends on how many speed racks you need to, you have to, it's key to cool it fast. So you have to at first put it every other layer in the speed rack. So it might take multiple ones, but then after it's cooled, you could consolidate it. For me, I'm happy to work with you guys more on that. I did talk to the chef. Chris? Yeah, a little more. But yeah, we could do more. And I think that particularly with wedding season, so if we could work together to get something ready for next wedding season, I'd love that.
I have a quick question before anyone else goes. Follow up to that. Do you go in, because I wasn't there, right, when you came into Breck Mountain Dining, do you go in and provide training to, the managers and stuff around the food safety, or do you provide, fact sheet, or what's your method for kind of letting donors know expectations and what you said around cooling and stuff?
Yeah, so in the beginning, the head chef who's not there anymore, Chef Stefan, taught me what to do. And then with every new chef, and when they get new executive sous chefs in all the time that that need to be reminded of how to cool. But I just talk with them, and they know. They just they're so busy, and they somebody says unload the hot box, and they load it too tight, and then we get in there, and I'm like, nah, sorry, we can't take it, and that happened 2 months ago. And then it didn't it happens that I'll come in, and I went in recently and things were in 400 pans, so I thought it was too deep for it to cool fast enough. And I went to the chef, and he's like, oh no, I shifted it after we cooled it because I knew that. And I was like, okay, good. So you just have to keep after it. And there are times when I won't take a round of rice because rounds don't cool fast enough, or just things like that. They are our biggest champions, and we have retail and wholesale food packaging licenses in 2 locations, and then we have retail distribution in 5 or 6 other locations. I lost count. And they come in and they love what you do, and they know. I mean, you just have to. You talk to them about what you have to do. I spent hours with the head of the Department of Environmental Health saying, I want to do this. And he's like, let me tell you the rules. I'm like, oh, then we can do that. And he's like, yes. So, I mean, I've not had a problem at all. We built our own in a customer relations management tool called Monday. It's kind of like Salesforce. And I'd be happy to guide anybody that wanted to build their own. And we use Monday for free. Up to a certain amount of seats, it's free. It just takes a little time to learn how to build it. And we'd be happy to help anybody with that. I have not applied for a refrigerated truck from Whole Foods. And I know it's there. I don't know if that's what you're talking about. But because I would have to get it cold. We just go and get something and move it. I sometimes, I always use insulated Cambros. Most of the time I put ice in them. But it's so cold up here most of the time that the back of my pickup truck it is good for the distances that I'm going. If I was running, I thought I needed a refrigerated truck when I was looking at programs in Boston where they would go to 5 places, and then they would go to 5 more places, and then they would distribute it. But that's not what we end up doing here. We end up taking it point to point. It takes a maximum of 20 minutes to get from one place to another, and we have insulated boxes. We use statefoodsafety.com. What's the other? There's another really well-known one, but we use statefoodsafety.com. To get food safety manager protection, it's like 40 hours of, maybe not that long. It's a lot of videos, and a test a proctored exam you have to take. Our county Department of Environmental Health helps people, particularly Spanish-speaking people, get that certification. And they like periodically, like every couple of months, they have one of their employees hold a review session in Spanish, and then proctor the exam. So it makes it a lot easier. But for our food handler, I go on foodsafety.com and I buy bundles of food handler access. And then when somebody says they want to be a food handler, I just send it to them and they just take it. It takes like a couple hours. I got incredibly lucky.
The Pizza Hut shut down.
I was looking and looking, and I reached out to a town of Silverthorne town council member, because I was like, maybe you know where there's a place. And the town had just bought the Burger King and the Pizza Hut. There were 3 Burger King, Pizza Hut, and Arby's all shut down, and the town wants to change the traffic pattern right there to help when there's a snowstorm and people can't get home to Kremling. And I got in front of the town. I said, wait, before you tear that down, can I use it? And so our time is limited, but I am rented that space for $10 a year.
I think that's like a really good point though, and for people looking for partners, like the conference center example was a great one where we have a lot of space and we wanted to open that up to the community. So I think, if you're on that side of things, considering like if you do have space to offer for, even nonprofits outside of, what Diane does, but just considering that and like finding different use cases, because I think we all know, right, we have a limited footprint and limited space and storage in our mountain town communities. So just really trying to collaborate and be partners in that aspect and thinking outside the box a little bit about the space we have.
Yeah, and the Keystone Conference Center, for the longest time, that was our only place to package. We have one table and our storage is under that table, and that was good. That worked. So that could be something. There might be commissary kitchens that are like that anybody can go rent space in. That might be a possibility because you really don't use it all the time. We actually are renting out commissary kitchen space in our hub right now. There's more demand than what we're getting in. It just is it's a matter of getting it to the place that's going to get it out immediately, or having freezer space, which we now have. We get incredible support monetarily from our town and towns and county here in Summit County. As we said before, it's a third of our budget. I think maybe event caterers. Maybe we could get more. Like, I don't know how you interface with them. Because like restaurants don't, unless it's a clean out, they don't really have a lot. It's their job not to have. But maybe connecting with caterers, and we have worked a lot with HC3 to connect to people. That's a high country conservation center here in Summit County. What else? I think that local governments definitely can, if they can recognize what we're doing to support the workforce and support us with funding. I mean, I wouldn't turn away more funding, but we're already getting a nice amount from you guys. I don't. Yeah.
Well, I think we have a few minutes left, and I have, just a couple of thoughts when Diane was sharing, more about the Refed impact calculator. First of all, if you've never been on their website when I was doing research for this, it is amazing. Shout out to you guys. And there's just like so much information on there that's super fascinating, just related to food waste, environmental impact, and social impact. So if you haven't seen it, check it out. And two, that impact calculator, not only for the recipient of food and how helpful that can be, but for us from the ski industry standpoint, from an employee engagement standpoint, that's an awesome tool to show like we donated this much food last month and this is how much water we saved and this is how many meals we provided. So in thinking about I know we had this conversation a little bit as a ski industry on Monday, But in employee engagement, that's another really good tool. If you do, even if you don't donate, you can just put in compost, and you can see your environmental impact from there. So just a food for thought there. But yeah, I think if you take away anything from this, if you have the ability to donate and you're not, consider starting small, loop in your team. Donating a little bit is better than nothing. Yeah. And I think we can all have an impact in this space. Looking at the spaces you have, can you offer, shared space to a local community member or nonprofit in your community, and then reducing food waste, right, to minimize that environmental impact. So huge shout out and thank you to Diane too for all the work that you do. Super grateful for you here in our community. And yeah, thank you everyone for being here today.